Welcome to the Nordic Mythology Podcast. I'm Daniel Farah, owner of the company Horns of Odin, and I'm joined, as always, by Dr. Mathias Nordvig.
Hello. We are joined this time by Alex Feher from Fire in the Mountains, one of the guys organizing the festival taking place in Jackson Hole in Wyoming in a couple of weeks. Welcome to the show, man.
Hey, thank you. Yeah, it's less than 2 weeks. Today's Tuesday.
Less than 2 weeks. Yes.
10 days. 10 days. 10 days from today. Exactly. Friday, the 22nd.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's
wow.
Come
around. Ready or not.
I would say last time you were on, it was mid-COVID. The world was falling apart. And I guess the idea of having the festival running was a little distant kind of thought.
Yeah. A future memory. It's funny, I actually got leveled by COVID not long after we had our podcast. I flew back to Jackson a few days later and just got completely leveled by Delta. I had to go to the hospital, had hypoxia, pneumonia. Yeah, my oxygen levels dropped below 84%. Part of the problem was I thought it was Omicron, and I'm like, all right, cool. I'm going to do my normal routine and go hike up mountains with my snowboard and sweat it out, because that's usually what I do if I feel like I'm getting sick, which I never get sick. And I got like fucking level. So that was very humbling. Wasn't sure if I was going to make it to the summer at a couple points.
Oh, really?
That was bad, man. I was like in delirium. I was watching like YouTube videos on old growth forests in New England, which made me feel better. For some reason. We like to be in the woods, but that's what my mind gravitated to. Sunnier, like, lush places in the world, as opposed to dreary, cold, 20 below Fahrenheit. I don't know what that is, Celsius, Wyoming, because it was brutally cold then too. So, but I made it. I'm here.
You made it. You survived.
Doing all right.
Did it change your perspective on things a little bit?
It humbled me. Didn't change my perspective, but it humbled me.
Sure.
I had a parasite that I got in Colombia in November it was like a 3-week parasite. No one told me to take antibiotics. They all said, oh, you'll pass it through. You'll pass it through in a few days. And a few days turned into a few weeks. And then I came home to visit my family for the holiday time, December, and was, not living my best life, eating cookies and drinking a lot of glug. And and then it crushed me.
Grandpa Ralph's glug.
Grandpa Ralph's glug. Yeah, you remember. It was good.
I mean, when you say parasite, that terrifies me. When you
does.
I feel like
a parasite you picked up in Colombia. I'm like, that's like
I was behaving myself too. I was drinking clean water. I was eating like really clean food. Because the resort, one of my clients doing farming, permaculture design stuff is a client down there, and they take really good care of me. And I don't know how I got it. I don't know, but I did, and it sucked. I still, like, if I fart in the middle of the night in bed, like, it still wakes me up concerned, like it might be more than that. Might be too much information, but
you still got
I love it.
I got PTSD.
PTSD.
Yeah.
But hey, I mean, on the other hand, here in the US, we have brain-eating amoebas that you can get from, a random fountain in Texas and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, we have that here. You can't go to my old stomping grounds. My favorite hot springs, Huckleberry Hot Springs in Yellowstone. It's like a 45-minute walk, and it's beautiful, but you can't go in anymore because there's a brain-eating amoeba, supposedly.
Yeah,
I think too many tourists found out about it. I know, it's scary.
Why does that
Apparently
exist?
You got to be careful because it'll crawl in all crevices. So, like, if you go in there, you got to make sure everything's tight. Because they'll find any way to get in. So shit, maybe that's how I got it in Colombia. I don't know.
Anyway. I hate stuff like that. It absolutely terrifies me.
It's weird.
So yeah, in a little bit we're going to look at Viking stereotypes. No, we're going to look at Viking stereotypes. Mathias is going to kind of get rid of some of those. We're going to hit him with a quick list of things we can chop through. But first, tell us a little bit, I guess, about Fire in the Mountains. I know Mathias is going to be there.
I just have to say one thing about this whole like brain eating amoeba thing is like, it is actually the thing I fear the most about living at a lower latitude than Hamburg. All the brain eating amoebas and parasites and things that you can get out there in the world. So I just wanted to put that out there. We have like poisonous mice here, so there's that too. So
what kind of mice?
Hantavirus mice, man.
Oh wow.
Yeah. Like, you don't want to get that. That's like a 39% chance of survival.
No big deal.
No big deal. Okay, go back to talking about Fire in the Mountains.
I'm not going to sleep tonight if you carry on with this.
Oh, you know we're going to come back to it at some point.
Oh, I know. That's what we do. Yeah. So obviously, I know Mathias is going to be there. Jonas is going to be there. Sean Parry is going to be there. So you've got a really interesting lineup.
Ivar Bjornsson from Enslaved and Bardsbeck and Hugska with Einar. Einar's not going to be there, but Ivar will be there. And it's going to be 10 days from today on the dot. Friday starts Friday, 6 p.m. We have 5 acoustic bands playing on Friday night, Saturday and Sunday. 10 each. We have 2 stages, and then the talks start technically it starts at 8 a.m. We have Qigong with a woman named Colleen Fletcher, who's also doing a talk called Meditations, which is she has a business where she literally teaches meditation to the incessant drum beats of heavy metal. So like the double bass. I'm highly interested to hear and feel how that goes. So that's cool.
At 8 o'clock in the morning as well.
Yeah. Well,
that sounds fucking amazing, man.
Will be at 9. Yeah, it's gonna be loud
o'clock.
First thing.
So all people are gonna be woken up. Need is to add goats to the mix, just like yoga goats. And then it's like perfect.
Well, that's not metal though. It would be like we need like bighorn sheep or something, or mountain goats from the Yellowstone.
Yeah. Now it's
grizzlies.
Don't fuck with those. We already spoke about parasites.
People are already like, if you look at our Instagram, some people are freaking out already because we just started releasing the details of like when the festival opens and the times, etc. And the first thing we talk about is like, hey, this is the most densely populated habitat of grizzly bears in the lower 48. So like, you gotta lock it up. Literally lock everything up, and like keep your shit together. Keep your personal shit tight. Like we're in a big field, so the chances of the grizzlies coming in is like pretty much nothing. They're not going to do that. So like we have people storing, telling people to store their food in their cars in the parking lot, which is a distance away from where people are camping. But people are freaking out about it. Like, well, grizzlies can still get in the cars. Like, no, they can't. Like, they can't unlock car doors. They've never broken into cars. The only way bears have gotten into cars is if you're feeding them from your car. Like they may sniff your car and they may try to rock
it. Or you leave it open. You leave your car open and you leave some food in it.
And just make it easier for them. Yeah, touche.
Yeah,
and then you can lock them in.
You're totally right. And also, just the amount of people and the noise from the music and everybody is going to scare any grizzly bear away. Like they're not going to fuck with that. So nobody needs to worry about it. But it is still,
people are
great that you guys are, training people in handling a grizzly bear attack.
Totally. I mean, what's the difference between a car and a food truck? I mean, windows might be about the only thing. So like, if the Forest Service is okay with us using a food truck to lock people's food in, the cars work well too. And that's like a quote from the fishing game. And they'll be there because they're doing, like you said, they're doing a bear safety course on Friday and Saturday. So that's kind of great. Yeah. People get
my problem is I don't trust other people enough. Like I'd lock my food in my car, but somebody else who's pissed, I know they go out there. Somebody there is going to be looking to feed the bears. Like, because people are fucking ridiculous. And somebody somewhere will be pissed and they'll be like, "Ooh, that bear looks cute. Let's go try and feed some fucking donut or something."
Yeah, that's a heavy dose of psychedelics. is what that is.
That is what it is. Yes.
Yeah. Please don't do that.
If I get eaten by
no.
a bear at
Nobody's
Fire
getting
in
it.
the Mountains in Wyoming this
It's a
year,
metal way to go.
it is a
Yeah.
metal way to go. It's straight to Valhalla. I'm gonna be just fine. It's like that's a warrior's way to die. So it'll be okay.
That would might as well be divine intervention. Odin came down. Game time. Come with me. Yeah.
Yes.
As long as the
fucking metal way to go.
As long as the bear turns up the following Tuesday to sit down with me to do the podcast, I don't mind.
Oh yeah.
I'm gonna need a co-host.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, well, maybe Mathias turns into the bear. That's it.
Well, let's hope it at least absorbs some of my precious knowledge or something. I don't know.
I hope so.
No doubt it would.
I mean, you don't want me carrying this show on my own.
Don't sell yourself short. You're highly entertaining.
Yes.
I appreciate.
As long as you wear a coconut bikini every time, you'll get plenty of patrons and folks tuning in. I guarantee it.
That's my retirement fund. That's my retirement plan.
Yeah, coconut bikini and a Viking helmet. That's what I'm talking about.
Only Dan's. It's up here. I'm ready for it. I'm gonna be making the money. So Jonas is gonna be there, friend of the show.
Big time.
Yeah. What's
he
doing?
Feel free. Well, you should feel free to shoot him a quick text because he's just itching to get on.
Let's hear. He's bringing his glazed onions.
Oh
yeah, hopefully. So the theme, I'm gonna read it right now. The theme for the barbecue is Thiazi's. I say that right?
I like the way you look at Mathias for
I was texting Jonas.
Thiazi's. Thiazi's feast.
Yeah.
So Jonas said when he heard Ivar Bjarnson was curating parts of the festival. Ivar is one of the main guys behind Enslaved and Hugja. With the overreaching title On Wings Over Utgard, my excitement about the festival was further elevated and I simply had to get involved. This is Jonas's words. Oh, he just texted me.
I can't believe that Jonas has sent a script.
Well, I mean, this is for a post. This is for a post. Yeah.
I thought he'd send this
just for this.
Just for this. I'm like, that's. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if he had.
If he had more time, I literally told him we were going on like maybe 20 minutes ago. I was like, dude, stop on.
We'll see if
join us.
Up.
He's texting me right now, but I can't do it with my phone. I can't check it out. But Jonas immediately thought about the story of Skald's. Oh Jesus! How do you pronounce this?
That's
the one. Thank you. In Nordic mythology, were gods Odin, Loki, and Hymir. Correct.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Sets out on a journey, traveling through mountains and wilderness until they are in need of food. In a valley, they see a herd of oxen, and they take one of the oxen and set it in an earth oven. However, their plans to cook the steer are thwarted by the giant Thiazi in the guise of an eagle. The story then goes on to involve the goddess of the apples of eternal youth, the transformation of the goddess into a nut, not a newt, a nut, and a high-paced chase between an eagle and a hawk over Utgard and Asgard, the home of the giants and gods, respectively. So that's the basis behind the barbecue we're doing. So there's going to be a plethora of apples and hazelnuts, maybe some pine nuts if I can forage them. And we're slaughtering a steer.
Now that you've read it, do you want Jonas to come on and read it himself, seeing as he's just popped into the waiting room? Here he is.
I think we should.
Here he is. Did you hear it? Did you hear the pronunciations being butchered? You're
muted, Jonas.
Jonas, you need to turn your microphone on.
You're muted.
Is he in his pajamas?
All right. Yeah. Hi guys. Hi. No, you think tomorrow? I'm leaving tomorrow to go to this festival, so I don't really have time to to come on the podcast.
You're always welcome.
You got
lovely. Yeah, no, I'll just hang on 1 second.
You've got like 20 minutes. You look fresh. You got cleaned up before you come into the States. I like it. You look good, man.
It's important, man.
Yeah, damn straight.
Jesus. Going to the land of the free, home of the brave, and well-groomed.
The brave and well-groomed.
I've been telling all the ladies in Jackson that we have a Danish Viking chef and musician, bard, if you will, coming. So
shit,
you have a lot riding on your impending trip.
What?
Shit.
I wonder where that sentence is going to end then.
I mean, it's a choose your own adventure for Jonas.
Oh God, yeah. I suppose they don't call it Jackson Hole for nothing.
Hey,
Okay, that was low. That was really low.
That's the only one you get, or I'm kicking you out. I was kicked him.
Did you kick him out?
No, he just.
Did you kick him out?
He's muted himself.
You're muted again, Jonas.
Jonas, come on. Shan has to edit this into some coherence there. You're muted again. Oh, unmute yourself.
There we go. I wasn't prepared, so yeah. Sorry, but now it looks like it's stable, and I'm ready to go.
All right.
So fire away. Where are we?
I just read your dialogue for the Thiazi's feast.
Yeah.
So like the myth behind it.
Yeah. Now you're gonna have to tell all the pretty women in Jackson Hole about the glazed onions.
The glazed
fucking glazed onions. What? I mean,
what's the menu,
you're gonna
my
have
friend?
to do glazed onions now, Jonas.
Shit. I mean, those take fucking forever to make. So I don't know. I mean, if it's the one that I'm thinking about. No, I mean, so like literally, I mean, it's been a minute since we first talked about this whole thing, Alex and I, and because as you probably already mentioned, or if you haven't, it was right before COVID hit.
No, I haven't. Yeah, I didn't set a timeline to it.
Okay. Yeah, so we basically started talking about this because, Fire in the Mountain was supposed to happen in 2019. So we started talking about me coming down and doing a Farm to Festival barbecue at Fire in the Mountains back in, I think, Feb of 2000. It
was like January, February of 2020. January. Yeah. January
2020. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And you told me that the Ivar from Enslaved, whose label I had just signed to, so the whole thing seemed very synergetic and serendipitous and everything. Because Ivar is one of the owners at Binors, which is the label I'm signed to with Nibala, and he was going to do the curation, and he called it On Wings Over Utgard, right? So immediately, I seem to remember me thinking immediately of the story of Thiazi, and the story of that whole story of I think it's is it Thor or is it Odin? I can't remember which one of the great gods it is, but it's a guy called Odin, I think, and Loki, and probably is it Odin or Thor?
It's Odin. It's Odin.
It's Odin. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. And because the whole thing was, all things related to going into the wild, going beyond, going into the unknown, and that whole thing. And that story literally is that. I mean, they go into to Utgard, I think, actually. And correct me if I'm wrong, Mathias, but and they
You're wrong.
They're not in Utgard?
No, actually, so Utgarder is only used in one story.
Yeah.
In all the other stories, it's Jotunheimer.
Right.
Or
Okay.
or something like the wild. So in this story, it's more of just the wild. But it's really an interesting thing actually, because Utgarður has been associated with like the giants, the Jötnar, but it's actually not even the Jötnar that exist in Utgarður. Utgarður is literally out of space. That this is what we learn in the story about Thor going to Utgarðarloki. He travels beyond Midgarður and Jötunheimr and the deep sea, and then he gets to Utgarður. And I don't know what that is except out of space, because it's like literally like way out there. So but that's an entirely different thing. I think it's a really cool theme, and I think it also is very fitting. And for any Scandinavian, of course, like going to America is going to Utgarður. So
very much so. I mean, I kind of like that. I kind of like the idea, regardless, because the whole idea was to, for me to sort of kind of think of a way that this barbecue could be related to the idea and the curation that Ivar had done, and that Alex and Jeremy had done for the festival, to make a barbecue that sort of thematically and energetically mirrored that in some ways, because this is a story maybe not of going totally into outer space, which is what Thor does when he does the trials at Utgarðarloki, but it is still going into the wild, going into the unknown. And what do you do when you're in the unknown? You also find yourself being hungry, and if you're not prepared properly, which these guys wasn't, you have to figure out what can you eat. And so they see a steer. Somehow they find an ox, a steer, and they slaughter it, and they try to cook it in a pit, and they can't get it working. Like every time they open the pit, the meat stays uncooked, and they are being cursed by an eagle, who is Thiazi, who is sitting as an eagle on top of the tree. And long story short, it comes to a point where they find out that this eagle is cursing them, and in order to be able to eat, in order to be allowed to eat, they have to bring him Idun, basically, who is the lady of the apples of immortality. And so and later on, she gets turned into a nut in order to be held within the grasp of Loki, I believe. He turns her into a nut. So I thought, okay, so here we have three elements to make a barbecue from. We have steer, beef, we have apples, and we have nuts. So how do we do that whole thing? How do we weave that whole thing into a narrative that goes with an exciting barbecue? And so the menu is literally quite simple, actually. We have a stable, which is going to be a kind of herbal pearl barley, vegetable pearl barley, herbal pearl barley, which is cooked, and then it's going to be a sort of rather just a delicious salad of apples and fennel and hazelnuts and so on. And then we're going to grill a steer, which Alex is procuring. And so that's good. That's really it. Like the three elements of the story woven into a barbecue.
I love it.
Boom.
I love the sound of that.
Yeah,
so we're
gonna love
going
the taste
to
of it
eating,
more.
We're going to be eating what's in that story, and I kind of think that's kind of funny. That's a fun, creative project as well, fun challenge as well. How to do that in a great way, and to feed. I think what are we feeding, 1,000 people or something like that?
Yeah, no big deal.
No big deal.
Easy. Oh, I'm jealous.
Yeah, we're gonna do 500 a day. We're sold out. We just upped it without telling anybody, and we're sold out already. We sold out like within days. It's great. So we got hungry hippos.
Hungry hippos, indeed.
Jonas is the man.
That is going to be so much fun. Yeah, I'm leaving tomorrow, actually. And my God, the logistics around this stuff right now with COVID and everything is quite. I mean, in the post-COVID world, is quite insane. I just hope nothing gets canceled. Let's just say that.
Oh, it's going to. You can be sure of it. It's really bad right now.
Do you think?
Well, I don't know. I don't know. It's like a flip of a coin. It's like 50-50 from last I heard, which was a few days ago, listening to stuff.
What are you flying? Who are you flying with?
Well, the good thing is that when I'm flying to the States, at least the first leg of the journey is with the new fantastic April Pro that we're on the Nordic Mythology podcast. There's just been a new airline that started flying out of Scandinavia called Norse Atlantic Airways.
Oh my God! What the fuck?
And it's the most reliable.
You said the magic word.
So I'm flying with fucking North
Don't
Atlantic.
jinx it. Of course you are.
Well, I mean,
wow.
I got tickets with Scandinavian Airlines, and you don't know if that's gonna work out.
Okay, now be careful with those.
Like
That's a total shit show right now.
I
with
know.
SAS, with Scandinavian Airlines. I mean, that's a total shit show. And,
it would be fucking hilarious if I was flying with Norse Airlines.
right.
Oh,
You wouldn't
They're
even
the
accept a free
They're the
ticket
most
from them.
reliable right now.
I'd be like bitching about it all the way.
Yeah.
like
Like,
8
wait a
hours.
It's like the stewardess. You realize that this.
Excuse me, ma'am.
Oh dear. Well, Mathias, I'm gonna have to buy you tickets for that.
But that does worry me a bit that you're saying that, because because the thing is that getting a direct flight these days is impossible. Like, it's literally impossible unless you have like $2,000-$3,000 to spend per ticket. That kind of thing, at least, I think, or more. So we're flying. It's gonna be a crazy trip. So we're flying to Fort Lauderdale. I'm flying first to Miami, and then to Las Vegas, and then I'm going to LA for a few days before, and then flying to Denver, and on the way, and then driving down from there. But on the way back, it's also something like the same thing. So it's totally possible that stuff is going to get canceled and delayed and all that kind of stuff in between. I didn't know it was this bad in the US as well, because in Europe it's completely crazy. Like, I'm really dreading for August, because Nibala is playing first show ever in the Netherlands on the 6th of August. And as of July, I mean, in the all throughout July, in Schiphol Airport in Amsterdam, which is the airport that we need to go to, they've had, I think it was if I'm not mistaken, I think it's 13,000 cancellations a day.
Doesn't surprise.
What?
It wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah,
They don't fly that many flights a day. No way. 13,000?
Maybe it's people.
People, maybe, yeah. Maybe.
yeah. No, sorry. Of course, I mean 13,000 people a day is going to be affected by cancellation. Sorry,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's insane everywhere.
Otherwise, I mean, it's astronomical amount that they would have to fly in and out. Yeah. No, but
I mean, Schiphol is a pretty hardcore airport. Like, isn't it like one of the most used ones in Europe?
Yeah. It's gigantic. Yeah, Ingrid is saying not enough staff. Yeah, there's not enough staff, and strikes and all that stuff. Yeah, so
a lot of pilots are not coming back to work.
Yeah, it's a giant mess.
Not being talked about. Yeah. Well, I mean, I know Odin is on our side for our festival. I have multiple omens to confirm that, so I think you'll be okay. He'll be looking after you, Jonas. Yeah,
You'll get
do a
there.
ritual. We'll do a ritual before you leave.
By the way.
Yeah,
That's some of it.
Yeah, we can. Are you?
Hang on one sec. I have absolutely no idea what's going on there. It's gone mad.
I feel like we're not going to get rid of Jonas now. He's just going to stick around.
He might.
I know. He's gonna miss his fucking flight. Our fault.
Yeah.
Damn it.
Because
Last-
he's
last-
Canceled. He just missed it.
Last time he was on, we did 2.5 hours. So
That
and
is
then we did
right.
like
Is
and then we
that
did
it?
another
Hey.
and we did another hour after.
Yeah, we did another hour after that, just talking about love and stuff. Which was
Yeah,
wonderful.
we did. Should we do some stereotypes? Jonas, are you hanging about, or have you got stuff to go do? You getting
I
ready? Or?
obviously do have stuff to do, but unless you wanna, like, is there any, anything else I can say? I'm just thinking.
I think that.
Yeah, no,
that's-
it's just hugely.
You've
fucking
spoke about the
exciting.
feast. You've plugged Nabala in the Netherlands. you've,
Jonas
I've
is.
done, I've done my due diligence.
you've ticked the. Go on. Do you want to say all about Midgasblow as well? Get it all. Get the trifecta in.
Yeah, and there's Midgasblood on the 19th of August as well. Which I hope
19th.
people will
Just-
be able to attend.
It starts on the 17th, doesn't it?
Yeah, but
Yeah, he's playing on the 19th.
We're playing. Sorry, I only care about my own.
Right, of course, yes, yes.
he's here to
Playing on the
plug himself. No,
There's a couple
Jonas-
of other small bands like Badruna and Heilung and that kind of stuff they're playing as well.
These like small Viking style bands.
Tiny, projects. Something
Wait, Dan,
with,
are you going? Are you going to Midgardsblow?
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
great. Then we'll all convene there. I will see
Oh,
you
you-
there.
Are you going too?
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh, yeah.
I'm so I'm
Alex,
excited
I did
now.
not know this.
What?
You
Did I
did
not
not
tell
tell
you?
me this.
Everybody
No,
and their mother is gonna be there, guys. Like literally everybody that I know is gonna be at Midgardsport.
Anybody
So,
cool?
Yeah.
Everybody cool, yeah.
Yeah.
So I'll
Anybody
see you
who's
there.
anything.
Is Jeremy going as well?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, wow. Oh.
Yeah. Yeah.
Are you
Yeah.
serious? You didn't tell me this at all. I mean, when did you think of this out?
I mean, even my kid is
Uh,
going,
Yeah. So I'm flying from Jackson to New York to spend a night or two with my parents who live 60 miles north of New York City on the 10th of August. And I'm going to fly to Oslo on the 12th. And I'll be there with, I'm going to be a personal babysitter for Dr. Nordvig and his wife. And then I'm going to travel with them on the 17th or the 16th, whenever we go up.
Oh,
Yeah.
Good.
My cousin
Is-
might come too. He's rad.
Oh, I feel like 5 coconut bikinis been made. That's what
I'm
I'm
done. Yeah, sold.
thinking. That's what I'm
Jeremy-
thinking.
dude.
Jeremy likes to get naked though. So if he's involved
Yeah,
and
he
we're already in
does.
coconut bikinis, then he'll just get naked. So
Yeah,
then he'll take it to
he
that
will.
level, and then we all got to get naked.
Yes.
Oh, well,
Oh, yeah.
Oh, well.
Make it on
Shucks.
skis in particular.
gotta do what
right?
you gotta do.
Yeah, so we're
Okay,
gonna have a
we
big
have-
party.
we have- So Nibala we have 2 cabins at Midgardblow. That's our accommodation, 2 big cabins. But I'll have to make it so that one cabin is the party cabin, and then everyone else sleeps in the other
Yes.
cabin.
Yeah.
So we can.
That sounds like the plan. Sounds
Oh
like the
god.
plan.
Yeah.
There we go. Anyway, we're here to talk about Fire in the Mountains. So
Definitely.
Oh, right. Yeah.
forget Midgasblow. Forget Midgasblow for now.
I mean,
So-
it's Midgardsblow, it's cool, but Fire in the Mountains is just a little more
Oh,
badass.
Well, it's got grizzly
know,
bears,
That's
so-
what I
It's got
heard.
grizzly
and
bears.
brain-eating amoebas. So
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All the-
There are those.
All the important things.
Jonas's
But
at least you'll
glazed
be-
onions.
At least you'll be well fed by Jonas's glazed
That-
onions. Right.
Exactly.
On my glazed onions. Everyone gets a dip in the glaze. No, I don't know.
Oh shit!
We're gonna have so much fun when you get out here. I can't wait.
It's
Oh,
gonna be
man.
awesome.
Oh, it's gonna be so great.
Yeah, I can't fucking wait. It's gonna be freaking awesome.
All right. Right. Stop talking about how good it's gonna be, because I'm fucking
He's
getting sad over it.
FOMO.
Seen how much mead I've drank just in sadness.
You can
Drowning.
always go to Rammstein, Dan. They're gonna be. They say this is their last tour, but it's not. Like,
Oh.
it's never gonna be.
That's like Slayer. Slayer had like 5 last tours. So did Madonna, for Christ's sakes. You just can't say no.
Yeah.
I know.
That's why
Right.
I used to play in a death punk band, and we always played either the last show ever or a reunion show.
That's brilliant.
But never anything in between. It was either the last show ever or a reunion.
Brilliant. All right, Jonas, are you staying? Are you going? What's the
No,
plan?
I should probably get going because I got to get up dead early in the morning, and
Just
I still have some packing to do.
Perfect.
make sure you bring a couple tambourines and like a personal drum for the fire.
I'm traveling light, buddy. I'll have to kill something on the way and make a drum.
I can bring a drum.
Okay.
You bring a drum.
Yeah.
I'm sure we'll have some there. I'm just implying we're gonna have to make sure there's a pop-up set.
He's getting you a verbal contract on the podcast that you're going to be around the fire playing music is what he's doing.
Saturday night. No big deal.
I've done this to so many. I've done this to so many guests. Got them into this position. So I see what you're doing.
The way I see it in my head is like straight out of the Northman, and we'll have a close up on his face as he starts to serenade.
Recreate.
Is he gonna be making the movements with the pail as well?
Yeah.
Onions on a stick or around his neck and playing the drum. All right, Jonas, get out of here. Go to bed.
I'm going to go. I'm going to love you and leave you guys. And
it always descends into chaos every time you're around.
I know.
That's why
I know.
I'd say more like ascend into chaos.
Oh yeah.
And ascend into chaos. Oh, I love that.
I thrive in chaos, so it's fine by me, man.
Yeah.
No, it's fine. All right, we've got some stereotypes to do there. So come on.
We have some stereotypes.
Get out of here, Jonas. Come on.
Okay.
I love you
guys. Thank you guys.
Love you.
I love you.
Bye.
Love you, brother. See you
us,
soon.
man.
Love you. Bye.
Yeah.
There you go. I'll just kick him out. Oh, what a guy. Is there anything else you want to touch on before we do stereotypes, or do you think
about the festival?
Yes.
No, we have 24 bands, we have 8 speakers, we have Jonas, who accounts for multiple
personalities.
Yeah. We've got grizzlies and bald eagles catching trout out of the river next door.
That was so cool. And
yeah.
that was while there was a rainbow in the background.
Double rainbow.
Double rainbow.
Oh yeah,
yes, exactly.
Double rainbow. While the band, the Ruins of Beverest played, which the Beverest was Alex, the frontman's take on Bifrost, because he wanted people to search Beverest and get only his band, as opposed to Bifrost would have a number of references, so they wouldn't find the band. So literally we had a double rainbow while the band The Ruins of the Rainbow Bridge was playing, and it was fucking epic. Wow. Windstorm coming through, blowing over instruments. We had 8 guys on stage holding down instruments. They didn't stop playing for a second. It was awesome. Intense.
It was
rain.
Pretty fucking cool.
Oh, there's video of it. It was nuts. It was the most epic thing I've ever seen.
Oh, nice.
Musically, like hands down.
And let's not play down the fact that you have the Grand Tetons in the background as this is happening.
That's true. Yeah, dude, that's our whole brand, right? I forgot about that. So there's other awesome stuff happening.
Yeah.
Mathias is talking, am I right, as well?
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
So he's doing.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, he's doing a talk on the Rus and whether they had tattoos or not.
No.
Or using that account.
No,
to reference whether. Okay, I'll let you tell.
We're going to. I'm going to give sort of like a rundown of that that talk, and of course anchor it in. I mean, I've given this talk before at academic conferences, and I'm going to anchor it in the idea of like what is a modern Viking stereotype, and one of the modern Viking stereotypes is, of course, that they had tattoos, and then you have 2 types of people. generally with it, the ones that are like, no, they didn't have tattoos at all because we didn't have a word for tattooing. It's like, not like anyone else has really had a word for tattooing, but that's another subject. And then you have, on the other hand, people like, of course they had tattoos because they were Vikings and badass, right? And so dipping into the sort of like the rabbit hole of like the Vikings that are badasses with tattoos. What is that all about? So it'll be talk about the historicity of tattoos in context of the Viking Age, and then also what do we actually, as modern human beings, expect of Vikings? What do we expect them to have been, and so on? And I can tell you that pretty much everything we expect them to have been is wrong, even when we try to be alternative about what we expect them to be. So because they were human, and it's always really complicated to pinpoint what humans actually are, right? And especially in a time period where you don't have much historical literature to actually use to furnish our understandings of them. So it's something about Viking tattooing and something about Viking expectations to Viking stereotypes. So yeah,
there we go. Perfect to take us on to our little quick hit stereotype debunking by Mathias.
Oh no. Okay, so
doesn't have to, I've got a list anyway. So
you have a list. Perfect.
Of course, I've got a list.
Let me hear about the list.
I came prepared. The first one that I want to ask about is, I keep seeing this popping up again, and it's the Sunstone. And I keep seeing it fucking popping up everywhere at the minute. I don't know if there's been a new documentary on it or a new article or something, but I keep seeing something shared on Facebook about this fucking Sunstone.
Right. Yeah. It's not particularly likely that they use sunstones. Like, it just isn't. Like
the Sunstone, for anybody that's watched Vikings, the TV show, is the thing that Ragnar uses to see the sun through the clouds, and apparently it's how they navigated from Denmark, Norway to England.
Norway, right? To England, and that's how they find England. So I think there was a research article written on the possibility of whether or not they would have used these particular crystals to see the sun in cloudy weather, based off of a find, I think, is on the Scottish coast of and I believe that was an Icelandic ship from the 1300s, where they had some of those crystals on it. But this is there are too many layers of conjecture between that find and then the idea that people in the Viking Age may have used it. And you also have to ask yourself, like, how many of who are we talking about here? Are we talking about like the total amount of Vikings on boats using these in like a span of almost 400 years, like from the 700s to sometime in the 1100s, so this was just like the common technology. What about all those people in the Scandinavia who came from places and needed to go on a boat and sail from A to B, who did not have access to, chopping these crystals out of a rock somewhere? That would be most of them. So it's like, it's a little overblown sort of like idea. I think people find it fascinating because, it's a little bit of a crystal hoodoo involved, and also it sounds like some kind of like deep mystical technology. It's like, I can tell you what they did. We can really see that on, the naming traditions that you find, along coastlines that Vikings have been in contact with, on sort of like very extensive level, so to speak. So for instance, Scotland, Ireland, the Irish coast, the Scottish coast, and that whole area where you go down from on the west side by the Hebrides and get into the Irish Sea and everywhere. What do you find? You find so many place names that basically just signal some kind of natural feature. Like this is the promontory of something something. That's why there's so many nesses out there, right? Or this is the Vik of this and that. That's why you got so many Viks, right? And so on and so forth. Why? Because of navigation, right? So basically what you do is that you sail through this area and then you take note of all the important natural features that will guide you in a direction. And then when you come back to Norway, because these people are most likely Norwegians, then you tell your buddy about it, who didn't go on the trip. And you go, hey dude, when you sail this direction, then you're first going to get to like the place with the giant rock. And then you're going to get to the place with the, I don't know, giant waves, or the place with the trees on the top, and so on and so forth. This is the most common way that humans have navigated across the planet, right? Basically taking note of natural features and then navigating for them. And we have descriptions of this in medieval literature. If you want to sail from Norway to southern Greenland, there's a description of how you're supposed to be seeing the Faroe Islands in the distance at a certain, like the water has to be like at a certain level compared to the height of the cliffs and so on. You only sail past Iceland to the extent that you like notice that there are whales and birds that will normally be closer to the shore than out at sea, right? And you want that on your right side, not your left side, because you're going west. Those kind of things. So, you know, if these people have had like a Sunstone as like some kind of technology, they probably would have fucking wrote that down somewhere, right? And been like, hey, when you go to Iceland from Western Norway, pick out your Sunstone. And then you have to like look at the sun through the thingy, and then use this like weird disc in some water like Ragnar used to, and then you'll find Iceland, right? They didn't write that down. They wrote, take notice of this particular natural feature, of those birds over there, of that the whale, and so on and so forth. And of course, you also know, which direction you're going when you know, for instance, that the sun is coming up behind you, then you're going west. And if when you sail at night, for instance, if you notice that the sun is coming up in front of you, then you're going back to Norway, right? So those kinds of things are much more important than the so-called Sunstone. So yeah.
Was that their main navigational reference is the sun?
Natural features, the sun, also the placement of various stars that they're familiar with, like the North Star, for instance. They're of course familiar with constellations as well. We don't have a lot of descriptions of like, where constellations need to be and all that stuff, but the sun and moon are definitely important for them to use as well. But then you also have things like the different kinds of waves that you get depending on where you are. Like, are you far out at sea? Are you closer to land, and so on? An experienced sailor will understand how the waves function. You can even, consider such things as the smell and taste of water and so on. Like, as another component for navigation and understanding where you're at and what you have come to and so on. And as we know from plenty of stories, both current and more ancient in the North Atlantic, if you run into fog, you're fucked until the fog leaves. So that's another thing that's like no Sunstone is going to solve that issue for you, right? But then, you know, if you're a very experienced a sailor and navigator, what you can of course do is use your nose and your taste and your ears, right, to understand what kind of waters you're in. Color of the water as well is something that will help you out too. So yeah, that's more what they've done than anything else. And then of course we know for a fact archaeologically that they used lead, you know, tied on a piece of string or, you know, a rope to, you know, gauge the depth of the water as well.
Oh. All right, I've got 14 more of these, so you're gonna have to keep the answers a little bit more concise than that one.
Well, this one was more complicated,
Yeah.
I think, than some of the other ones.
No, we can always expand on any of these if not, but these can be a fun little episode of just getting rid of a bunch of stereotypes, I guess. Okay, next one's Viking Funerals, because obviously I've seen on a bunch of TV shows where they never bury them on TV shows. They always put them on a little boat and send them off to sea and fire an arrow at it.
Right.
Is that real? Does that ever happen?
So it's really, really difficult to tell whether or not there's been exactly that. So the idea of you know, pushing a boat out to sea and then setting it on fire comes from Snorri's Edda, where we have the story of Baldur's death, where Baldur is put on a boat and then, well, they don't shoot arrows at it, but they set it on fire and then push it out. So that's sort of like the origin of the idea of that boat burial at sea. Now the problem archaeologically with that is that it can be very difficult to find the remnants of a burnt boat like that was necessarily a burial, right? We can, you know, imagine that, you know, if this is a very successful burning of the boats, then what you will have is a little bit of the hull, charred remains of the hull left that will sink to the bottom. First of all, you have to locate that, right? That can be difficult enough in and of itself. If you actually do, and we have some examples of that, for instance, the harbor of Hedeby in what is now northern Germany, used to be southern Denmark. There's a burnt boat that has been found in the harbor. Now, the main theory on it, and I haven't investigated exactly the find and all that stuff, but the main theory on it is that was used as a fire ship that was essentially just basically sent towards the harbor to fuck shit up in war, right? I don't know if that could have been, you know, a fire burial, but I assume that the archaeologists that have interpreted as a fire ship in war probably have their good reasons for doing so. So to sum that all up, right, like it is incredibly difficult to find archaeological remains of those kinds of burials. Now, what we do have are buried ships that you can go to. You used to be able to go to Oslo and see, but they're currently rebuilding the museum. You can see some in Denmark, you can see some in Sweden, where they buried people with grave goods and sacrifices and all that kind of stuff in a ship that they then put under a mound, right? They threw a mound over it. We also know that they burnt some ships like that, you know, loaded them up with all the sacrifices and goods and then burnt them on ground and then put a mound over them as well. And then of course we have the story about Ibn Fadlan, which or by Ibn Fadlan, about a Rus Viking chieftain who is buried in a boat burial of that kind, right, which is then set on fire. And the description that he gives of that process, the things that go in there, all the stuff that happens there actually seem to fit incredibly well with what we have archaeologically. So it's a reason to assume that he's actually telling you the truth about what he sees when he is investigating these Vikings. So yeah, the whole, and this is why it's so awesome in that show The Norseman, where the coward chieftain has to set the boat on fire in a burial. What is it, of his father or his brother? I can't even remember. And he keeps like shooting arrows at it, and he keeps missing. Right?
Yeah,
because that's another thing that you could consider here.
Yeah, why did they just set it on fire before they push it out? I did wonder that. Why?
It looks
wait?
cooler. It looks cooler with the burning arrow, right?
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah.
So for the most part, I'm guessing not everybody got that funeral. It was most people, were they just cremated or buried?
Or not at all. We can assume that there's a decent amount of people who didn't get much of a funeral at all. And you know, it really depends probably on your status. At least that's the current assumption. What we can see in northern Denmark, there's a burial ground called Lindholm Høje, which is just north of Aalborg. And this is the largest Viking Age burial ground that we have. And there are like 900 and something graves there. And they have all kinds of shapes and forms and, content. Some people have been interred as full humans. Some have been burnt, and you get those stone ship settings, you get triangles, you get the circular settings, and so on. So there's a lot of there's a lot of variation essentially happening there, and that's what we see across the board. If you look at across Scandinavia, there's so much variation in how people are handled as dead people. So what we do see is presumably a tendency to give people who belong to the elite that boat burial, and what we then start seeing is also that what we could call the Viking Age middle class or whatever, they start emulating a little bit, and that's probably what that site Lindholm Høje is an example of. Like, it's basically every Joe Sweatsock Viking who's like, hey, I want to be buried like that too, man. And it's like, well, you can't afford that elaborate style burial. It's like Oseberg or something like that, but we can put some stones up that look like a nice little boat for you. And he's like, oh, okay, cool, man, that'll do it. So there's that, like, that's a possibility. And then there's also something about status and like what kind of role did you have in life. Like it looks like many female religious authorities were actually interred in chamber graves, and some of them looked like little houses, and they were like seated in there. You could go in there and hang out with them after they were dead. That kind of stuff. We get a couple of those in the Danish area in particular, and I think also in eastern Sweden. So it's a lot of variation, essentially.
Fair enough. All right. The idea that they were all giant, because that's one thing. You always hear this thing of like the Vikings being giant humans, fucking a foot taller than everyone else.
So I haven't looked into the average height of Scandinavians in the Viking Age. This is also an iffy picture, right? Because we're dealing with a certain amount of graves that we've found when we try to calculate that, and it can be kind of difficult to. Sometimes it's even difficult to figure out the gender of a person that was buried. But if I remember correctly, the height of an individual living in the town of Hedeby, which was the largest urban center, or whatever you want to call it. I mean, it corresponds to what is essentially a village today. maximum 4,000 people, I think. If you look at the people there, if I remember correctly, we're dealing with people who are like 155 to 167 centimeters in height. So that's what. Quickly, what's the
it's like 5'6" or 7, maybe
something like that. Maybe
Ish.
even
I'm going off of
less
like
than
where
that.
snowboards fit on
Right.
me.
So I mean that doesn't sound like particularly tall
162
people.
is like chin height on me. 163 centimeter snowboards like right here on me, and I'm 6'1". So then it'd be less than that.
Yeah, Alyssa is throwing in here that 5'8" to 5'9" for men, which is shorter than today, but slightly above average at the time. That sounds about right. And so the idea that these Scandinavians and people from the north in general, it's not just Scandinavians, that they're like wicked tall, actually comes from Roman literature. I think we get one of the first examples of it in the descriptions of Marius's campaigns against the Teutons, who are like said to be tall. And then you also get it with the Gauls. You get it with several peoples, that the Romans conquer, and it's because the Romans conquer them, right? It's like, hey, we kicked these people's tall asses. Right, and it always sounds cooler that you beat some giant dude up than somebody who is like a foot shorter than yourself. And
every person I've ever fought is 6'5". Every one of them.
Right. I even fought somebody who was like 7 feet once, and he had like a giant head and hair between his teeth, and
probably
so like it is a literary trope that we get about peoples in the north in general, and as the literature moves with literary production moves farther north in medieval Europe, then it's also attached to some extent to Scandinavians. So that's really more what it is than them being particularly so much taller than other people.
Okay, what about them all being blonde? That's another one. Because
all
that's
being blonde.
That's the image, isn't it? The image is the tall blonde Viking.
Right. Last year there was a. Was that last year? I think it was last year. There was a pretty considerable genetic study that was done on graves, Viking age, but also dating all the way back to the Bronze Age. So that would be, the span of nearly 3,000 years, to see exactly what kind of genetics they were carrying, what was their hair color, for instance. And it looks like Scandinavians are generally blonde from the Bronze Age and until the Viking Age. But then in the Viking Age, they start getting darker, their hair color and such. And that is because it is in the Viking Age that that there is a considerable, there's always been some, mingling of European populations and Scandinavians having children with somebody from the South and vice versa. But in the Viking Age, you have a considerable amount of Scandinavians finding their partner outside of Scandinavia. And that's when you see the introduction of darker features. So it actually looks like the average Viking was more, like brown hair kind of than anything else. So
like a mucky blonde, mousy blonde.
A mucky blonde, yeah. It's what we call, pate hair color in Danish. So. Kind of what I have, actually. What we're also seeing from this study is that it is, for instance, in the Danish archipelago is the eastern Swedish area, and some coastal regions of Norway where people, get darker hair. So that, also corresponds with the fact that those are the locations that are mostly in connection with places outside of Scandinavia. Whereas we go to the inland, for a long time, they maintain more lighter hair features and that kind of stuff.
There you go.
Yep.
Okay.
My family's from inland Sweden. That's why I got the dirty blonde.
It's the dirty blonde. Yes.
Yeah.
That they refer to themselves as Vikings, because if anybody's seen the new series of Vikings, what was it called? Valhalla. They refer to themselves as Vikings a lot.
Was that any good? Was that
I've not
show any good?
I've not seen it. I've just seen complaints about them referring to themselves as Vikings all the time. No, I haven't seen it yet. I'm not sure. But Mathias, have you seen it?
Nope.
Do you want me to stall a little more while she's typing?
Yeah, I was just typing something about going back to the subject. There was a little bit of discussion in the chat about the blonde hair and all that stuff. And if I remember correctly, the core land for like blonde, like the genetics that give blonde hair, is sort of north central Sweden and eastern Finland, and of course a little bit into Norway, and then from there it sort of like gets a more and more faded circle, so to speak. And these features are, of course, because of farmers with vitamin D deficiency. So yeah.
What does vitamin D have to do with your hair color?
It's the same with the pale skin and everything. Once you start farming, there's at least that's the theory that is the most recent theory on why white skin develops in certain regions of the world, is when you start farming and stop getting vitamin supplements from hunted animals. Such things as the nice juicy fat from a seal that would otherwise be very helpful for such things as vitamin D. But
don't you get vitamin D from the sun? So as a current farmer, like I'm tan AF right now. Like I'm outside, I'm out in the sun all the time getting vitamin D. And my hair gets lighter.
My hair definitely gets lighter in the sun as well.
Yeah. You're gonna have to address this subject with some kind of specialist on that.
You're our specialist on everything.
Yeah, but no, I'm just regurgitating stuff that's
how we treat you.
Biologist wrote in a paper somewhere.
You're getting more sun exposure. The fact your skin would get lighter makes no sense logically, because you're outside, and the more you're
not that your skin gets lighter from that.
Melanin builds up in your skin. So it technically gets darker.
Yeah, but your skin doesn't get lighter from sun exposure. Your skin gets lighter from being a doughboy eating grain, which becomes sort of like the cornerstone in Northern European diet from the what do you call that? The sedentary Stone Age, which is what?
Sure.
When we were dealing with Scandinavia, it's from like 5,000 something years ago, maybe a little bit more. So yeah, all right. That's what we're dealing with here. Okay, cool. Let's go on. 5,000
quick
prior to zero. That's what.
Quick answers. Quickish answers.
Okay.
Okay. So them referring to themselves as Vikings. Did that happen?
No. I mean, only the Vikings would refer to themselves as Viking.
But would they have referred to themselves at the time?
That really depends on who you're talking about. If it were a Viking, yeah. If it were any random ass Scandinavian, no.
Okay, so did the word exist at the time?
Yes.
Or was it a word that came after? Okay.
Yeah, because it would be a maximum 10% of the Scandinavian population in the Viking Age that would refer to themselves as Vikings because they were Vikings. It's the same as
like being a pirate.
It's like
This is good because you're knocking off one of the other ones here as well, so I can take that off my list.
Okay.
Answering two at once.
I mean, it is the same. Yeah, not so much pirate because the meaning of the word is more expanded.
Yeah. I wasn't trying to say that it's the same thing as being a pirate, just like in the sense of like, if you're not a pirate, you don't call yourself a pirate.
Exactly.
In that sense,
and it's the same, like if you're not in the army, you don't call yourself a soldier, totally. Or if you're not a banker, you don't call yourself a banker. So yeah. Cool.
Right.
Okay, there we go. The idea that women went on all raids, I guess, is the idea of like shield maidens and that kind of thing. It's this thing that
I don't think we can. And this is where there might be a new study out there, but I don't think that we can authenticate the presence of a single woman on a so-called raid. I mean, it's possible that there's been one, but that there was some amount of women who did this, but as far as I know, there's not any archaeological evidence that substantiates the idea that there were and this is of course also based on the fact that like do we have, for instance, burials like Sodoma in Estonia, right? That's a great example of a burial, a Viking age burial, where this was an invasion or raid attempt that went horribly wrong. And in that scenario, the bodies that have been found, none of them appear to be women. But then again, we might not, we could be, like, it's not impossible. But like, as far as I know, none of the burials that we found in context of the Great Heathen Army in England, for instance, indicate that there were women among the fighters. There is a female warrior graves from Norway, as far as I remember, where it's been proven that she did have, when she went into the grave, she did have a pretty good sizable dent in her forehead, if I remember correctly. So that's like a example of a woman buried as a warrior with what appears to be battle wounds, right? But that is one example. So it's really, really difficult to say. But the idea that there were women on every ship that was going to England to invade, that, I don't know. It's not unlikely, but it's also not proven.
Okay. So the next one is the women had no rights in the Viking Age. Because I guess it links to the idea that you see spread every so often about women being able to divorce their husband and that kind of thing. So how does that work in like a rights sense?
We have no idea what rights they had.
Okay.
There are like these vague references. So we have a Al-Tatushi, this Arabian, well, he's actually Jewish, but he is on a mission from the Caliphate, the Arabian Caliphate in Cordova, to the Danish area. He visits Hilleby, and he says, oh yeah, the women, they can divorce if they want to. So that might be true, it might not be true, it really depends. If it is true, then there is that right, I guess. And that's not uncommon, that in societies of various kinds, both in a European historical context and outside of Europe, that women have the right to divorce under certain circumstances, that kind of stuff. So did they have no rights? Absolutely not. Did they have rights based off their status in society? Absolutely, right? So you can expect that a woman of higher rank, an elite woman, would have a lot more rights than some tenant farmer woman, right? That's how it always goes in in Europe after about 500 and onwards. Like there's a lot more when it comes to rights, there's a lot more that attaches itself to your position in society than any idea of like freedom or inalienable rights and all that stuff. So yeah, if you were queen, you probably had a fuck ton of rights, and if you were a slave, obviously you had none, right? So that's how that worked. And then you get everything in between.
It's complicated. Did they drink from skulls?
There's a couple of mentions of that, right? But it's later literature. So we know of a descendant of Vikings who ended up as a skull drinking cup. And Alex, this might you might enjoy this, knowing that
I'm all ears.
The other side of your family are Magyar, Hungarians. So they're it's before they really materialize as Hungarians. They're sort of
during Attila the Hun, right?
No, it's a little later than this.
Oh, later.
It's later. Yeah. So so this happens in what is it, in the early 900s or late 800s? I can't remember exactly.
That's when Attila was around.
No, that's the 400s.
You sure?
No.
Stupid question. Sure. I forgot who I'm talking about. Shit. Shut up, Alex.
Get him. I
thought it was the 800s or 900s that Attila was around.
He's
but you might be right. I think it might be the 400s. Yeah.
Oh, it was definitely. Yeah. It's definitely the 400s. But fuck, I just checked it, but I was fucking hoping you were right. So
has he?
Oh no, we lost him. He left.
So Alex,
hold on.
Has knocked his camera off, turned the video off. He's destroying the cabin that he's in hangar. Okay. So did they drink from skulls?
So just to back up this thing about Attila the Hun, he was in existence from 406 to 453. But that doesn't mean that associated peoples, like for instance the Magyar, didn't have some kind of reign over locations in Europe afterwards. Anyway, what happened was that Sviatoslav, the descendant of Igor or Ivar of Kiev, this famed Viking, whom we know very little about, except that he apparently ruled Kiev for a bit. His descendant Sviatoslav, he did get visions of grandeur, and so he tried to invade the Byzantium, and that's how he ended up as a Hungarian drinking cup, because they used Pechenek artillery, not artillery, cavalry. Because we're talking about artillery, it's like, hey, that's way too early for it. I'm sorry, guys. I have a cold these days again, so
that's all right.
Just so everybody know I am a little vapid.
Okay.
But yeah. So there's an example of a Viking, or at least a descendant of Vikings, who ends up as a skull drinking cup. Now, did they otherwise have skull drinking cups? Maybe. It's not impossible. I am not sure that we found any.
We've all seen many Viking bro memes of like drinking from the skull of your enemy.
Right. Yeah. And it is mentioned, right? I think, Alex, the reason you brought up Attila and the Huns and all that stuff, you brought up the Huns, is that it is actually mentioned in context of our heroic remnant stories of the Germanic experience of the Huns. What is it? Is it Gudrun turns Atli's children, or their children, into drinking cups as well, if I remember my story about Sigurd the Dragon Slayer correctly, right? And so that would be, the legendary version of Attila the Hun that we're talking about here, Atli. So yeah, there you go.
Okay, the next one was about the personal hygiene, but you can listen back to last episode and we do a full episode on that, so we'll skip over that one. The idea that they fought with just axes, like, because in any TV show we've all seen it, it's all axes, throwing axes at each other. Like, why you would throw your axe at someone is beyond me. But it seems, right? Alex, you've muted yourself, but
son of a bitch.
It's all right. It was in the chaos.
Thank you. Yeah, I know. I don't even know what happened there. Blacked out. So what about broadswords? Because like, if you don't have an axe, you throw an axe, then like you got nothing except for your fists. Like that doesn't work against another sword or shield. Like, what do you do? Or metal?
Well, anything, right? Yeah.
So I think the thing with the axes, right? That's where the noble savage myth sort of like plays into recasting Vikings nowadays, because who else do you see throwing axes around except for Native Americans, like in popular fiction, right? So that there's got to be some kind of like weird spillover here where it's like, oh, you have this, like, some of the filmic incidents where you see a Viking throwing their axe, like almost
as a
mirror. Yeah, they almost mirror the filmic situation in like the Last Mohican or something like that, where somebody comes and throws a tomahawk. So I think that's where it comes from, or honestly, like, and it has everything to do with like portraying, Scandinavians in this time period a little bit like Native Americans. It happens all the time for some reason. It's like Scandinavians have become sort of like the white man's noble savage. Like that's the ones that we look to for like these heroic ideals and some kind of purity and speaking of Viking stereotypes, right? So that's probably what we're dealing with here. They had a lot of different weapons. They had, the typical Frankish swords that are about 90 centimeters in length.
That's a big fucking a big sword.
A big ass sword. 90 centimeters is like the typical length of the swords that they would use. Double-edged. You have the sax, which is a single-edged sword that is used in the early period, in the early parts of the Viking Age, and they also get around that length, or maybe a little shorter. Some of them are definitely shorter. It looks more like a giant knife than anything else. Then you have like obviously bow,
like Bilbo's sting.
Is that? I thought that was double-edged.
Oh yeah, it is. But I was thinking like the length, like a dagger.
Right. Yeah.
Like in proportion to his body.
Yeah, they're more dagger size.
And ours.
Yeah, like Sting. Yeah. And then what else do you have? You have, of course, you have spears, and you have bow and arrow. We have also, siege weapons. Obviously. When all of a sudden you realize that those pesky English, they built a goddamn wall around that town you came and raided last time, you're going to have to build some kind of siege ram, right? And that was also the lesson for Paris. You're going to need some kind of siege equipment to invade Paris. And that's what they used. So no, they were generally at the same level as other warfaring peoples in Western Northern Europe at the time. And as I've said before, the only sort of like technological advantage that they had was the fact that their ships were so damn cool and fast. That was the main technological advantage. But as we can see in sort of like if we were to tally wins and losses between Scandinavians and say the English, for instance, there's nothing that indicates that the Scandinavians are doing much better than the English. It's still a game of chance whether or not you win some kind of standoff, or for that matter, a siege of a city. And that game of chance comes down to so many different things, right? Also, is your camp ravaged by dysentery? What is that illness where you shit yourself to death?
Dysentery.
Dysentery. Thank you so much. Yes, I'm for
Welcome.
Yeah.
All right, two more. Last two.
Yeah.
All they did was rape and pillage, because that's what you see all the time. That always gets brought up whenever you mention the Vikings, particularly to like outsiders.
Right. Yes.
Noble savage. Same thing.
Yeah, it links into that whole barbarian thing of like, just some uncouth grunting,
like
men running around the countryside raping and stealing everything.
So what you have to ask yourself, what do you think the Napoleonic armies did back in the early 19th century when they marched all the way to try to bring down Moscow? I think they did a decent amount of raping and pillaging on their way there, just like any other army might have. So if you have a so-called great heathen army from Scandinavia that lands in East Anglia and then marches through the Midlands and so on, they're probably raping and pillaging a decent amount. But again, these are soldiers at war, right? If we took the whole raping and pillaging theme stereotype to its logical conclusion, right? Would Scandinavia be populated today? They couldn't not rape and pillage each other all the time. It's like that means then that your neighbor couldn't build a house until you like immediately run over and start burning it and stealing his shit, right? Like, come on. Obviously, there were some Scandinavians and other Europeans raping and pillaging, and then there was a vast majority of any kind of Europeans at any point in time whose main pursuits in life were to eat, sleep, shit, fuck, and drink beer once in a while. Those kind of basic things, toil in the fields, and so on. So, yeah. No, they definitely didn't rape and pillage all the time. But some probably more than others.
Perfect. Okay, the last one. The most obvious one, the horned helmets, of course.
Well, the cool thing is that
that's number one on every stereotype.
Yeah, the cool thing is that we have depictions of horned helmets, right, from the Viking Age. Like there are little head pins that kind of look like Odin. Some of them have like crossed out eyes, or one eye that has been like scratched out, and they have little raven horns on them. We have the Vendel and Vasiere plates that were placed on helmets, where they're depicted individuals wearing horned helmets. We don't have any horned helmets that have been found from the Viking Age or prior in Scandinavia. There's at least one from France, but that has nothing to do with Vikings. Those are Gaulish warriors. And then we have Bronze Age horned helmets from the Danish area, a couple of assumed ceremonial helmets, these big, very heavy bronze helmets. They have giant horns on them. So the question is, did Vikings have horned helmets? We don't know.
Of course we don't know.
No, it's like, okay, so the only fully intact helmet that I know of from the Viking Age is from Norway, from Jermundbu, and that one does not have horns on it. But is it possible that some had horns? Yeah, because we have these depictions of what appears to be horned helmets. Now, were these used for war? That's another question that is hard to answer. Also, we don't know what they were made of. Like maybe it was a kind of material that that would break more easily and therefore not be a liability when you're like running around with like horned helmets. But the funny thing is that the main argument against horned helmets for Vikings is, of course, first of all, this is some stuff that it came up in the 19th century, so therefore it cannot be true. That's of course not a good scholarly argument. Secondly, it's like, oh, it wouldn't be practical in war. It's like, yeah, sure, take that grievance to the samurai in Japan and see what you come up with, because they had a fuck ton of horns on their helmets and other kinds of things, right? And you can find many types of like headdresses that you could argue would be relatively impractical for war that people nonetheless have gone to war with. So that's also not a particularly good argument, because you can't expect every old Viking to have been completely rational and thinking, oh, of course I shouldn't put a horn on my helmet because then this English guy who I'm going to fight later on is totally going to get me, right? So answer is, it's complicated.
Perfect end. We did it. Alex, let people know where they can get some tickets for Fire in the Mountain.
Yeah, fitmfest.com. Check us out on Instagram, at Fire in the Mountains. I think Facebook is the same thing. Yeah, tickets are limited, but they're still available. So, more the merrier. It's going to be a good time.
Okay, so
it's going to be great.
I'll be drinking out of my horn. So that was my question. That's they drank out of horns, right, Mathias?
Yes.
Yeah,
that seems well, again, we have this like awkward situation that there are actually no archaeological finds from the Viking Age that indicate drinking horns, but there are drinking horns from before the Viking Age and after the Viking Age. So just because
one would assume,
it's and we have plenty of references in I think we even have we have a couple of carvings of like horns, for instance, on runic ornaments, that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah, indeed.
So yeah, they most likely, just because we don't find it in archaeology, that sort of like goes back to this argument with like women at war, for instance. Just because we haven't identified it in the archaeological record doesn't mean it didn't occur, right? Like, it just means that we can't say much about it yet until somebody goes out there and it's like, I shall find all of these female warriors with drinking horns, right?
Yeah, there you go. So yeah, go buy a ticket, go to Fire in the Mountain. It's gonna be a lot of fun. I wish I was there. I wish I was going next year, 100%. Yeah, if you
there'll be other opportunities.
Yeah, if you can, definitely make the trip. It's gonna be a good time. Sounds like it's gonna be a lot of fun.
Yeah, you don't have to like metal. Half of the music we have is folk music, acoustic, or like psychedelic country.
Yeah,
for lack of a better term.
Hang out with cool people, drink beer, eat good food. And
everybody's hanging together the whole weekend. That's what's so great. Yeah. And no one's separate. Mathias, who are you excited to see the most?
Woven Hand, man.
Are you really?
Oh yeah. I've seen Enslaved before. I've also seen Woven Hand before, but I have a personal thing with Woven Hand. So that's,
I didn't know that.
I'm a very big fan.
Because you weren't at 2018 when they played.
No. But I think I saw him in 17 or no, it's gotta have been late 16 in Denver. So I'm a big fan.
Yeah. He's doing an acoustic set on Saturday, just him.
Yeah. Looking forward
David
to
Eugene Edwards. It's gonna be great. Yeah. So Cool.
Perfect. Mathias, where can people find you?
You can find me on Instagram, and you can also check out my website. It's just my name. It's matthiasnordvig.com.
Easy.
Really?
And check out my my company, Hyldyr, spelled HYLDYR.com. You can also find us on Instagram. And get...
Hey, are you bringing any of that to the festival?
Oh, I am, my friend.
Oh,
I will be selling mugs and
I want a
Send
mug.
some to me. Send some to me.
Yeah.
stickers and stuff.
Send some to me.
I'll see what
Who
I can
said
do.
Send me
Shipping
stuff.
costs.
I'll cover shipping costs.
Oh. Well, in that case.
All right. If you enjoy the show, please leave us a 5-star rating, a positive review wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you can, please check out Patreon. I know we've been a little off the heat on there over the last couple of months. We've had some stuff going on, both me and Mathias, but we really do appreciate the support. We'll be getting back on there and adding some new things, and also getting back to the bonus episodes as well. But it helps us keep going, keep growing, and get people helping us out behind the scenes, like Shan, like Rowan, who does the social media now. Yeah, it really helps us out and helps us, me and Mathias, keep doing this week in, week out. I think we're on 124 episodes, which is fucking ridiculous.
Yeah.
And there's some people
is a way to put it.
There's some people that have listened to every episode of that, which is phenomenal. What an episode is, an hour and a half to 2 hours. So that means people have listened to me and you speak for 150 hours.
At least.
Like, thank you so much to anybody who has endured that. We appreciate it. If you want to follow the podcast, it's literally Not Even Mythology Podcast on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. If you do go into the YouTube, please hit the subscribe and the little bell button so you can get notifications when new videos come out. Again, Ron taking over the social medias is on mine and Mathias's back for doing new little bits. We're going to maybe do some little bite-sized videos of information. I say we're going to talk Mathias into it. Doesn't know about it yet. This is the first he's heard about it.
This is the first time hearing about it, so that's going to be great.
Ron's going to be on our back to be getting new content out there, and expanding the podcast. So yeah, we appreciate it all. Take care. We'll see you next week. That's it. It's the show.
Yeah.
It's a wrap.
And just real quick, if any Patreon customers email us, info@fitmfest.com, we have some special vouchers we could send your way if you're interested in coming to the festival as a thank you to your paying crew. Yeah.
Yeah. I'll
awesome. Thanks.
I'll get the details
totally.
after, and then I'll do a post on Patreon as well.
Awesome.
I'll do a post directly on Patreon and let people know that that's the option.
Yep.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you very much, Alex. And I can't wait to see you at Midgard's Blood.
Midgard's Blood. It's going to be sweet.
That's it.